So, let's say you just got your new loop station and you are wondering what the heck does everything do? I'm going to go over every single aspect of this device for someone who is just getting this thing and wants to know how to use it. So I'm not going to go into detail about every single setting necessarily. We're going to go through every single side, all 6 sides of this rectangular prism here, and see what everything does. So the very first side that we're going to look at is the front side. It is definitely the least interesting side. There's nothing. We're off to a good start. Alright, left and right sides. So the left and right sides of the loop station actually do have a piece. There's a grip on the side here. This little indent is the best place to actually grab and hold. Other than that, not too interesting on either the left or right side. Next is the underside, but the underside is going to have the sticker. Make sure you have that sticker on your loop station for the warranty. And there's also a little cable, little gap here, channel. This is where your power cable can go into if you don't want it to be setting on top of your loop station and making it all wobbly. Other than that, that's all there is with the back of the device. We have 2 more sides left. We're making good progress. We have the back side. We'll start over here. So we have the actual power cable. This is a very, very, very specific power cable. It is polarized in a very specific way. Yours should have come with a power cable, so that one should work. And it works in a lot of different countries as well. Next is the actual power button. It's just a button. It doesn't push in or pop out or anything. It just pushes, and that's how you turn the loop station on. This here is a USB port. You will need a certain USB cable. It's called the USB-B, I believe, which it looks like this. It is very different from most USB cables. I had to buy this myself for this device because I didn't have one previously, but that is how you're going to hook up the loop station to your computer. Next is going to be your MIDI input and output. These are for your extra devices that you're going to be plugging in. Next you have your outputs. So you have your control 1, 2, and your pedal. So if you have a pedal, you can plug it into here as well. This is the hole that is going to be through assigns as well. If you're into assigns or learn about assigns, you can control it through this port here. This is a headphones port. This is for you to be able to hear yourself. This is actually what I use when I'm at home and I plug it into my home speakers. I actually just plug it through this headphone port, or if you need to wear headphones, that's where you're going to plug it into. You are going to need a extra little piece right here to be able to actually plug that into, because your normal headphone jack, your aux cord, is going to be too small. Next you have your 2 output lines for speakers. So you have the right and your left output for actual speakers. This is another aux port. It is one of the input side of things. This is not where your headphones go. So even though that, yes, this is an aux cable for your headphones and it will fit in the device, this is for input. So you're not going to be hearing anything. Next we have inputs for instruments. You have your right and your left. This is if you have your guitar or your synthesizer or your piano or whatever instrument you want to plug into this thing. That's where this goes, and you have a left and a right. Your last input hole is going to be the microphone. So your microphone is going to be an XLR cable that you're going to plug into the device. The last is this little hole here. This is actually for maintenance. This is a security hole. You don't have to ever worry about this or sticking anything in here. This is for the company boss to be able to get into the device and do specific things. That's all this is. And that's it. That is every single hole on this device. So now let's go into the most interesting side, the front.
So the bottom half is going to be easy to talk about. All of these sections here are called tracks. They all function exactly the same. The first thing that you have is this big button here. This big button is your record button. So when you push this button, it records everything that you say or put into the microphone or input into the device through an instrument. Records everything that you say or put into. Now there's this light that is going around this whole thing. What that is, depending on a setting that you have in your system settings, that will help you figure out what your measure is or the length of the actual loop. Another thing that this does is it overdubs. So again, depending on what setting you have in the system settings, this will go straight into overdub when you push it again, or it will finish recording. So right now I have record into play. So I push record into play, record. So it plays as soon as I push that button. You can have another setting called record overdub. So what it does is you push the button, it'll start recording. When you push it again, it'll start overdubbing. So overdubbing is when you record something on top of something else. So you have one sound and then you overdub on top of that to add another layer. So in this case, when I push the button, it's going to start recording, and then I'm going to push it again. Instead of just playing, it's going to go into overdub, which will record more on top of that. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now it's in overdub mode. 4. Now it's in overdub mode. 4. And you can record as many layers as you want. I personally have not reached a limit on the number of layers that you can keep adding to that. The next button that you see me pushing is this button here. This is the stop button. So the stop button just stops what's playing. So let's say we have something recorded here and we want to stop this. We have something recorded. We just push that button and it'll stop it. Another thing that this button can do is it can also clear the whatever's we have something on top of here. So to clear it, there's two different ways to do that. One is to read the instructions here, clear, hold for more than 2 seconds. So we can push and hold, it'll blink, and now what is here is gone. I have enabled into the system settings to double tap. It's called quick clear. So we go into settings, push the setting button, and we scroll all the way over to quick clear, system quick clear. I have it enabled. I can record whatever I need to, and I can quickly just double tap, and it's gone. The next piece is this thing here that I keep moving up and down. This is called a fader. The fader controls the volume of each track. So these are very, very delicate. They're unfortunately not very well made, so they do have a tendency to break. So you want to be very, very gentle with your faders. You don't want to be slamming them up and down. You want to be gentle with it. In fact, when I first started out, I was using mostly my faders to, like, say, stop a track. I would mute it instead, or if I needed to bring it back later on, I would pop that up. About halfway through, I decided, you know what, this is probably putting a lot of needless wear and tear on my loop station. So I now opt to stop my track rather than fader up or fader down to pause it. The last piece of information is the edit button. Now, again, I'm not going to go over every single setting. I have a separate tutorial that goes over every single one of these settings. But what this is it edits for your specific track. So the track 3 edit button will edit just track 3. Track 4 edit button will just edit track 4. And this is all of your track settings. Now, these do not carry over to different memories. Edit whatever you want on this specific track. You can save it using the right button, and then that setting will be saved on this specific track for this specific memory. Another thing that this button can do is it can quickly turn a track effect on for a track. So if you double tap any one of these track effects buttons, you'll see that it's blinking. That means the track effect is on for that track. So right now it's on for 3 and 4, and it's off for 5, 2, and 1. If I want to turn the effects on or off for that track, I just tap the button and it'll turn that off. But that is only active if we're looking at the track effects menu for those buttons there. So that is it. That is all the information on this bottom half. Let's talk about the top half and what all of these things do. We'll start on the left over here. We have this knob. This knob here is what controls our input effects and the settings within, the parameters within the input effects. So every single input effect has its own parameter that gets modified with this button. There is no way to change what this knob will affect as far as parameters go. You can change what it does in assigns, but we're not talking about assigns right now. But this will change some parameter in your input effects, and every input effect is different. So if we do, let's say, a granular delay has 3 parameters in it, but the knob is going to only affect time for granular delays specifically. Next thing is the buttons here. These are our actual input effects. So we have 3 different effects. Every single letter has their own effects that they can have on them. Some effects can't be turned on at the same time as other effects. So look at this handy chart here to be able to tell you which effects can be on. Some effects cannot be on at the same time. Like, for example, I can't have a granular delay and a transpose, for example. Only one of these effects will be on, and it's whatever effect that doesn't have the parentheses. Once you've scrolled through the different effect, if you push this right arrow, you can go into its track parameters and edit each one of those. We can skip over this side because this does the same exact thing, but it's just track effects. The input effects are for what you are inputting into the device, whether that be through a microphone, through your whatever. This will be affecting what is the input that is going in. So when you're recording something,
this is what will be inputted,
Once you've recorded something, you then have your track effects, which will then affect what is already recorded. And I mentioned you have to have your track effects on. So right now, I'll have a synth, which this is going to sound like garbage, but you have your synth on, or whatever effect on it is off.
Is what will be.
So it's not affected by the track effects. So if we tap that, or we go into edit, right arrow into track effects, and we can turn it on and off that way too. So we'll turn it on. So now it's affected. You can see it's blinking. And now the synth is affecting it afterwards. Next, we're going to talk about these 3 knobs here. Very, very simple. This is your input level. So we are very blessed to have this on the MK1. The MK2 does not have this button, which really, really sucks. There's a peak light that's right next to this. This will turn on if you start peaking. Next is the instrument level. This is for anything plugged into the input side of things over here. Next is your output. This will turn down and up the volume for your speakers. You can have it control just your headphone volume, or you can have it control both your headphones and the speaker volume. Next, we have these 4 buttons here. This button is the all start stop button. What this does is it starts every track that has a recording on it, and it'll stop every track that has a recording on it. Nothing is playing, so if I push this, all 4 of these are going to start, and then nothing's going to happen to track 5 because there's nothing on there. So we push those, and all these, we're going to imagine that there are ridiculous sounds playing. I want to get all of these to stop all at once. I just push the all start stop button. Every single one stops. You can control what stops and starts with this buttons. So for some tracks, I want only certain tracks to stop when I push this. So to change that, you go into memory. So here, if I turn one of these off, that means it's going to only start tracks 1, 3, 4, and 5. So in this case, tracks 1, 3, and 4 are going to start playing when I push this button, but track 2 does not. And then the same thing happens with the all stop. If I don't want it to stop track 2, for example, I can have it start. It'll start all of them because we have them all on here. But with here, if I push all stop, it'll continue playing track 2. Next, we have the undo redo button. The undo redo button is such an OP button. This is one way to have more than 5 tracks. So if you make a mistake, or if you want to record something and then bring it back later, you can use the undo redo button to bring stuff back or to remove certain elements. So what this does is it will take what you record and then take the last thing that you overdubbed, and it'll save those as 2 different things. What I mean by that is if you push that button, stuff is going to start flashing if you have stuff recorded. If you have nothing recorded, it's not going to flash. So I'll clear track 5. So there's nothing here, it's not going to flash. The tracks that are flashing tells me that there is something that can be undone or redone. The color also tells me what the thing can do. What also tells me what can be done is the screen up here. So the screen will tell me what can be done. So C stands for clear. So because there's only one layer on every one of these tracks, if I push that track play button, it will clear that track. So if I push this, it deletes it. Now if I have something recorded and then I overdub something, so now there's 2 layers. There's the original recording, and now there's that little piece that I just overdubbed. If I push undo redo, you can now see it says U. U means I can undo something. So let's say I make a mistake. I didn't mean to have that on there. So what I can do is I can push the play button, and that will undo track 3. It's very excited to tell me that. And now it says R. R means redo. So that means I can redo or bring back the last thing that I recorded. So the light is now red, which indicates that it has been undone and it can be redone. So if I push that, now it is back. We just redid track 3. So let's say I want to have some hi-hats, but I want those to be shakers or double the speed, or have shakers on top of them, and I want to change that in the middle of the track. What I can do, I can record something onto track 2, and then I can undo it and have just here. Alright, enough talking about that button. Let's go to the next one, the tap tempo. This thing does 2 things. One is it is a shortcut to the menu here. So instead of pushing memory once and then arrowing over to tempo, you can just push this button, jump straight to that. And what it does is you can tap a tempo out. So if I tap, it is trying to take the average of when I'm tapping it. The next button is going to be the start-stop button. This is your rhythm section over here. So your rhythm section includes your start-stop for your metronome and the edit button for the metronome settings. Next piece is this screen here. This screen tells you all the information that you need to know about what the heck is going on inside your device. Next is this value memory knob. This changes, if you're on the main menu, it changes what memory number you're on, and it also is the way to scroll through different items on the menu to change certain things. Finally, we have these 6 buttons here. You have your left and right arrows. That's just for menuing. You have your exit button. Your exit button will go back to the main menu. Next is the write button. The write button, what it does is it will write to the memory card that is in this device. Any piece that, besides any physical knobs or sliders, will be saved into that specific memory. And this has 99 memory slots that it can store stuff in. So you just tap it once, and then you can tap it again, and it will save the setting that you have. So if you exit and go back to it, all the settings that you had previously are now going to be back there. If you push the button once, you can arrow over to a bunch of different categories and sections. You can swap files around, you can copy just individual tracks, you can copy and load different user sets, like different track settings and all that into a certain thing. You can initialize. What that does is it basically factory resets, but just for this specific memory. So that's what this is for. Second to last is the memory button. This is, again, memory specific, so this does not affect your entire loop station. It just affects it for that specific memory, and there's a whole bunch of options here. Then finally we have our system button. The system button is to affect every piece. So no matter what memory we're on, this will be saved for every memory that we have. So I can change my loop position to say status. I don't have to change it for status for every single memory. This is going to stay on status for every single piece that I have. That is every single buttonhole knob on this entire device. So if you want more details on any of these, there are plenty of tutorials out there. I have my own tutorial, but check any one of those out. Hopefully that will give you a better idea onto what each one of these buttons do. So now you feel a lot more comfortable being able to mess around and have some fun with your equipment. Play around with this thing. It's awesome. And we'll see you in the next one.